Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we've got commission after commission in the process of delivering their reports. We got the Transportation Commission. This is a part of the program you don't want to miss. But first, Brad Bumsted from the Pittsburgh Tribune Review is here. We're going to take a look at Governor Corbett, his governing style, a little different than, let's say, Ed Rendell. I think so. We'll be back following these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, thanks again for watching. Well, we've got, different governors with different style. There was a lot written about Governor Corbett and, the fact that he wasn't interacting with the press and interacting with constituents the way certainly Governor Rendell had and maybe past governors. Is that a sign of effectiveness or not? Joining me, as often is the case, is Brad Bumsted with the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. This guy's written about a number of governors almost ad nauseum. You've covered a lot of governors, haven't you, in your day?
Started with Thornburg's second term, yeah.
So you've got Thornburg, you've got Casey, you've got Ridge, and now
Schweiker.
And Schweiker, we don't want to forget that. And for a brief time,
Mark Single.
Mark Single, who was lieutenant governor for Bob Casey. All right, let's talk about this style business. There was a lot written during the course of the spring, especially. Governor Corbett, a little more aloof, not as available. But yet, when it was said and done, this guy got a good bit of what he wanted. Am I right or wrong about that?
You're absolutely right about that. He got the main things he wanted in the state budget. That was his chief focus. He got the spending level below 27.3, no taxes. He didn't want to do a Marcellus Shale impact fee until after his commission comes in with a report. So all the things that he laid on the budget just about were completed, save for the Liberty Loan Fund.
Right. One of the things that strikes me is that Governor Corbett is, he has a different background. He doesn't come from, quote, into the governorship from the world of politics per se.
Right.
And, I used to joke and say, well, maybe politicians are just more gabby, and Ed Rendell, gabber in chief. You guys used to have 3 press conferences a day with that guy on occasion, right?
Yeah. Terry, I think Governor Rendell was an aberration in terms of governors.
Good point.
So gregarious, and he was so out there, anywhere. Anybody who would talk to him.
About anything.
About anything. he would do it. Whereas Corbett's style comes from the fact that he is inherently a federal prosecutor. That is his key background.
Right.
And anybody who knows anything about federal prosecutors know they don't talk loosely.
Right.
And they wait until they're absolutely ready, all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed before they present an indictment.
Yeah, and so I don't think there's any correlation between the number of press conferences you hold and how many events that you do, out in the public, on the one hand, and how effective you are as a leader. I mean, you could probably have both styles be equally effective.
I don't think either one is more effective than the other. I think that Kevin Harley, the governor's press secretary, tells me that Corbett has had far more public appearances where he's interacted with the press outside of Harrisburg. We just don't see them. But when he's in Philadelphia, when he's in Pittsburgh, he takes questions. So we don't get the full picture.
Now, this is a segue to the big news. 2 weeks from now, Governor Corbett will host his first edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and following that show, the week after that, State Treasurer Rob McCord will host the program. So if it all comes off, this is your host telling you this, we got a Republican governor and a Democratic state treasurer. We're nothing if we're not bipartisan. Actually, we're nonpartisan on this show. We just wanted to point this out. All right, Brad, I want to run to a break, and then when we come back, I want to ask you about all these various commissions. You've done some historical assessment of the various commissions. We now have Marcellus Shale. We have the Transportation Advisory Commission that I'm going to have Bob Latham on in a few minutes to talk about. And we've also had one other commission.
Privatization
Commission.
Is getting underway.
Getting underway. Lots of commissions. We'll be back with that and more following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School. bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by ReconnectPA.org, supporting a comprehensive transportation funding solution, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. I'm talking with Brad Bumsted, a reporter with the Pittsburgh Tribune View, the capital city chief reporter, I guess is one way to put it. Brad, everybody talks about these commissions, and some say collecting dust. Is that basically been true historically? What happens with these commissions? Many governors have had them for different reasons. Cover for unpopular items.
Yeah, for decades, governors have been using special commissions for a variety of purposes. One is to buy time on an issue. Another is to push something off stage center. Another is political cover, to have a third party recommend something. Another is fact-finding. But I spoke with two former governors and an acting governor about it, and they said there's some value to it. Now, former Governor Dick Thornburg told me that, look, he said sometimes they are preordained in the sense that the governor handpicks the people on it, and he wants a certain result to come out of the commission. But he said sometimes they surprise you. Former Governor Rendell said that their two purposes are fact-finding and building consensus on an issue. Of course, former Governor Rendell had the Special Commission on Transportation in 2006 that recommended some of the same things that have come out under Governor Corbett's Transportation Commission as far as revenue, and they were ignored by the legislature. So not only do they have to be adopted by the chief executive, most of them need legislative approval.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we tend to think that just because there's an operative word in many of them, not all, and it's called advisory.
Yeah.
Which means, go ahead.
They recommend.
Yeah, to the governor, and even the governor can't always just wave the wand.
Right.
There's some things governors can do by, quote, regulation, and some by executive order, but most of the important things needs legislative approval.
Right. Now, with the Marcellus Shale Commission report, which will be out by the time your viewers see this show, various things dealing with the environment, I believe that DEP under Corbett might be able to do
by regulation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But beyond that, you know, an impact fee, for instance, has to be approved by the legislature.
Yeah. My sense is that you know, commissions that most of the time what they've recommended have not been enacted. And I mean, I've not done a systematic study of them. Just my sense about that is, and I think the big takeaway from me is that they often involve controversial issues for which a governor just simply wants to get another set of recommendations about, that it does provide some, you know, I can get away from this. I don't have to be directly tied to it. I can, and then, you know, the emphasis on advisory means if you don't like what they do. Now let's take Marcellus Shale and the impact fee. You know, and I know, because you and I have talked about this before, that the governor's not favored this an impact fee or a tax. But now, if he wants to, finish my thought.
He can say that an independent panel recommended an impact fee that only goes to the costs of municipalities and doesn't go into any statewide environmental fund, which he's always shied away from doing. Because
or back into the general fund.
Or back into the general fund. Either one makes it seem more like a tax.
Yes. Now, before I let you go, the Marcellus Shale Advisory Commission did not, when it recommended an impact fee, did not recommend any money at all into an environmental fund? Was it just all supposed to be
for municipalities,
towards, local governments?
Right. The costs they've incurred as a result of damage from drilling and planning for drilling.
All right, great update. All right, Bob Latham, if anybody knows what's going on with the Transportation Commission Advisory, Operation Board Commission. I guess commission is the correct word. It's Bob. He'll be my guest following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, Bob Latham is back with us. He's the Executive VP of the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors. He's also on the Transportation Funding Advisory Commission. We're going inside the commission to get this report. All right, Bob, look, we've been through this before. In 30 seconds, what is the need for a commission? I mean, why are we going through this again? We did it once in '06 with Governor Rendell. Go ahead.
Well, previous commissions, 2 at the federal level, but more importantly, 2 at the state level, identified what the needs are, what the funding shortfall is. The charge of this commission was to once and for all find a solution to that problem. The most recent commission on studying the need said the funding gap is about $3.5 billion. Now, we didn't get there overnight, so our charge was to try to find a way to get there
now,
over
what do we
time.
Want to fund? I mean, why is this so important?
Well,
what
we're
about these roads?
we're talking about improving the safety of our roadway system. We're talking about improving quality of life by reducing congestion with several strategies, not just road improvements, but also better public transit, intercity passenger rail, and then alternatives to motorized transportation.
But we also have this problem of bridges needing structural repair. 25% of them. Correct me if I'm wrong. 7,000 roads of.
Look, the greatest generation, as Tom Brokaw called them, they paid for and they built the interstate highway system 60 years ago. That system, along with our other system of roads and bridges, needs to be updated, needs to be maintained. The traffic levels are unprecedented and never thought of in a million years as far as what we're going to be handling, and we have to keep upgrading our infrastructure, just like your water, your sewer, and your telecommunications.
And this shouldn't be a political issue. I mean, it's about business, it's about safety. This is not a Democrat-Republican deal.
Who doesn't want to drive on a safe road in their community? Who doesn't want an infrastructure system that will create jobs, bring business to Pennsylvania, and make it easier for us as a distribution state to be competitive in the nation and in the world?
We have the website of the commission up, everybody can read. If you want to get on that website where they have all the reports and all the testimony, the people who've come before you, I presume, and pretty comprehensive, so get on that website. All right, so now we're down to the nitty-gritty. We know we need more than $1 billion a year. We know this is important. It's called the Funding Commission. I want to get into some other things that you're doing. What are the salient recommendations you made last week about funding roads, the infrastructure?
Well, the interesting thing about it is, obviously, the roads and transportation are mainly paid by the user of that system. What we found as a commission is that over the past number of years, really going back 13 years, we have not increased or kept up with inflation any of those fees, particularly driver's licensing and registration fees. The other thing that's occurred is that the General Assembly and the political leaders have allowed the state police funding to shift over to the motor license funds. The motor license fund is paying about $600 million a year just for the operations of state police.
And would that money normally go to roads and bridges?
That's
is that
correct.
Your point? Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
My point is that. So we're talking about gradually shifting that, some of that, not all, but some of that state police money back to the general fund over 5 years. We're talking about gradually, we're talking about adjusting for inflation your driver's license and your registration fees and indexing that going forward. So don't get back in this mess. We got in this mess over a period of time. It's going to take us a while to get out of it. We're talking about recalibrating something called the oil company franchise tax that was capped in the early 1980s when we were driving around in Oldsmobiles that were getting 12 miles per gallon.
For what, $1.25
for
a gallon?
$1.25 a gallon, exactly.
Yeah.
And then to look at improving our public transportation, we're taking some of the what we call Act 44 money that's generated from the tolls on the turnpike, mainly in those urban areas, and shifting that money over to public transit. So we've got a comprehensive solution for roads, transit. There's also a component in there to fund ports, aviation, and this is a comprehensive solution.
So if this state wants to be a modern, if we want to have a modern economy here, if we want folks to come in and create jobs, we got to have an infrastructure capable of handling that.
That's true, and the jobs aspect that you mentioned, they all stay here in Pennsylvania. The important part is I just went over all of this, this fee structure. This doesn't go off into the ethos somewhere or into some government hole. This goes right back to private industry to create jobs here in Pennsylvania. Can't be outsourced. It'll help manufacturing here. It'll help the construction industry here. It'll help the distribution and trucking industry right here in Pennsylvania. It'll help make us, our agriculture community, which ships through the port of Philadelphia, will help us in the world market. It's very important to the future of the Commonwealth.
We're going to run to break, and when we come back, I want to talk about a couple other aspects of this. But before I do we put the nail in the coffin of sell and lease the turnpike? Pennsylvania Turnpike.
It did not come up during the
commission
deliberations.
And tolling Route 80, is that gone?
Well,
I know you've been involved in these discussions for years.
You know, the commission looked at tolling the interstates as a whole, not just one, but there's a number of caveats that have to happen first. First, the feds have to prove it, and secondly, we said if we're even going to consider it, well, all those monies have to stay on that corridor. So there's none of this concern that, well, you're tolling me, but you're giving it to somebody else.
Okay. I just, you know, we've talked about that over the years, and they were sort of the high, when those recommendations came up, they were front page, as you know, in every paper and on TV.
What we're recommending is a very reasonable approach that spreads it out through the through everybody.
All right. What else the commission recommends? We're going to get into that. Some important recommendations after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking with Bob Latham. He's on the Governor's Transportation Funding Advisory Commission. Operative word advisory, right?
Of course.
I bring that up. You know why I bring that up.
Of course, we're going to present, or the commission will present the report to the governor. He'll take some time to study it, and he'll decide what aspects of it that he likes and what he wants to put forth in terms of a package.
But also the legislators around the state, legislative leaders are going to get the report, and they're going to read it. And you've got folks in the legislature who have been pushing some of these agenda items that you're talking about for many years.
Absolutely. And I'd like to first of all congratulate the governor for, number one, for appointing Barry Shoke as Secretary of Transportation. I'd like to say hi to Barry this morning. He and his wife Karen, just proud parents of twins. Hope you guys got a couple hours sleep last night.
And he's been a guest on this show.
And he's been on this show before, absolutely. And Governor Corbett for his commitment to solving this problem once and for all. And I think he's serious about wanting to solve it. We're going to present these recommendations to him. There's a lot of them beyond just sort of the core ones that I talked about. He may not accept them all. It's really up for him to decide.
But he's also got to get around the whole notion of this pledge that he took about taxes. And as you point out, they're not just new taxes. The question is user fees and whether. Go ahead.
We have not recommended any new taxes in this plan. These are all fees and or funding sources that currently exist that haven't been addressed, haven't been adjusted in the modern economy. I mean, these were all put in before we heard of hybrid cars, before what they call CAFE or fuel standards, where we have cars getting 30 miles to the gallon. These were all put in when cars were getting 12 miles to the gallon. So consequently, our tax rate has actually been going down because of our energy policy. So that's what this is all about. The other thing is these are dedicated, constitutionally protected fees that are put on users of the transportation system. So when you pay your registration, when you pay your gas tax at the pump, you know that's going back into road improvements or road maintenance.
Right, where it should.
Where it should go.
I think we all would agree there.
Exactly.
All right, you all have gotten in it says funding advisory, but you're also dealing with some other considerations. Give us a quick overview of that.
There are three parts of this commission report. One is the funding, which we've talked about. The other is modernization and efficiency strategies. And what we're talking about there are the things that government entities can do to reduce costs, to deliver their services more efficiently. Next week, apparently, there is the first ever Turnpike PennDOT liaison meeting. They're going to be looking at sharing their resources so that we know that they're spending their money as efficiently as possible. PennDOT's going to be looking at maybe taking over some of the signalization services that local governments have. So that way, you don't have this business where you go to one and duplication or costly things that locals can't handle. So, and a lot of modernization on my industry and efficiency on how we deliver projects, how we bid projects, how we introduce new technology so that...
Is this long overdue, what you're talking about?
Some of it is, yeah, and some of it's just taking a fresh look at things and seeing that we can do things differently. And the other part that I want to really stress is the decade of investment, where PennDOT will be laying out with this money what they are going to do and what they're going to accomplish over the next decade. And they're not going to put this out and say, this is it, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
They're going to take this to what they call metropolitan planning organizations, local governments, and legislators, and ask for input. So everybody will have a chance to shape what this final decade of investment will be. And that's been one of the criticisms in the past, is that there hasn't really been any of that kind of input by elected officials at any level.
Yeah, and the fact you have a website where people who ought to care and get involved in this can get on the website and check things out. In less than a minute, what are your sense about the prospects for much of this? I know it's advisory. We talked about that. It goes to the governor. Legislators will get it. I mean, are you optimistic? You're a veteran of this in 30 seconds. Are you optimistic about a lot of this?
I'm very optimistic about this. I think that in our conversations with elected officials, I think everybody recognizes that this is a problem whose time has come and is ripe for a solution. The recommendations that we've made here have very minimal impact on the user. The first year, the impact will be 70 cents a week on the highway user. The fifth year, it's going to be less than the cost of a gallon of gas. I mean, we're ramping this up, and I think that people are going to support it.
Great update. All right, thanks for watching this edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.